I'm Evan Watson, and welcome to The Story. We're getting right into our big story tonight, a multi-million-dollar case of alleged fraud at the Hanford nuclear site near the Columbia River. The Department of Justice accuses one of the site's biggest contractors of billing the government for work that wasn't done, putting the environment, the workforce, and the public at risk. Susanna Frame has this story.
Here on his Kennewick property, Bradley Keever goes nonstop.
This is just my little makeshift shop. So here's a small one, Grandpa's old tractor. I just got it running again. This roasts my coffee. This building right here is going to be turning into my meat packing room. This is where the roasting happens. On this side of the building, I'm putting a recording studio in. I built this from nothing.
You'd have a tough time finding anyone busier, unless you saw him at work.
We are begging for work. I can't believe I get paid to do this, to do nothing.
Keever is a pipe fitter at Hanford on the fire protection maintenance team. That's him on the right at the worksite. It's their job to make sure pipes, sprinklers, and alarms are ready to go in case of a fire. It's an essential task. Hanford is the most contaminated worksite in America. For decades, it's where they produce plutonium for the country's nuclear weapons program. It left behind millions of gallons of radioactive waste, hundreds of contaminated buildings, and toxic soil.
It's hard to think of a place in the state of Washington where having fire systems ready to go at a moment's notice would be more essential.
We're both working at Hanford.
But when Keever got to Hanford's fire safety team 7 years ago, he couldn't believe the sluggish pace. He says his employer, government contractor HMIS, gave them little to do, but instructed them to charge the government for full 10-hour days of work.
So what would you do?
Read, watch Netflix, nothing.
And how did you feel about doing that?
I thought it was insane.
According to a suit filed by the DOJ, HMIS's failure to appropriately plan and schedule work, they regularly engage in a fraudulent timecard scheme designed to fleece the Department of Energy.
It is lying, it is cheating, it is stealing. We're stealing from the taxpayers. I mean, our taxes are outrageous. Why pay a company to have their guys sit around?
Some examples include a manager writing workers who did not have a job assignment for the day were to charge for a full day of training. 2 workers charged 2 hours apiece for a job they detailed took from 9 a.m. to 9:14, 14 minutes, not 2 hours. Another worker charged for a full 10 hours of work on a day he spent in front of a screen. Watching the 90s rom-com, There's Something About Mary.
I think it's extremely unfair to the taxpayer. The big thing is to clean up this waste, and knowing that this money is allocated to do that and it's not being utilized for that, it's quite depressing.
While the money was rolling into HMIS for fire safety work, federal regulators found massive gaps in maintenance, including federally required pipe inspections that had not been performed in many years.
A fire is one of, if not the most likely emergency scenario out at Hanford that could spread chemical and radioactive waste far and wide. And so to not know the status of every single fire system at Hanford was terrifying.
I was just attracted to the safety on fire as I got older.
For Brad Keever, this work is personal. At the age of 9, after lantern fuel spilled on his leg, a friend lit a lighter.
So I have about 20% third-degree burns throughout my body.
5 decades later, the scars are still there. A reminder of the importance of being ready for a fire. Exactly what he wants to do for people and the environment at Hanford.
We don't want that reputation of being the lazy Hanford worker that doesn't want to do anything. We're forced to be that lazy Hanford worker. We have very highly skilled craftsmen that are ready and are begging just to work.
The contractor under investigation, HMIS, says they are cooperating with the DOJ and that they're always looking for ways to improve how efficient they are at Hanford. A trial in this case is set for September of 2025. Now to an update on Multnomah County's drug deflection program. That's the new system designed to offer people a choice of treatment and services instead of jail when they're caught with hard drugs like meth or fentanyl. Counties across the state started their deflection programs on September 1st as part of Oregon's recriminalization of drug possession. Multnomah County opened its facility called the Coordinated Care Pathway Center on October 15th, following renovation and staffing delays and pushback from neighboring community members. County officials say the number of deflections continues to increase, but it's still too early to analyze outcomes. I'll get to that in a bit. But first, here's a quick look at the data that we do have. 127 people started deflection between September 1st and November 15th. About 74 people were referred to the Pathway Center in its first month of operation, and most of those people started deflection. Overall, the program has provided 268 referrals to deflection participants for services. An individual can receive multiple referrals for things like sobering, detox, outpatient treatment, peer services, or housing. Here's Bernard Gibby Foster, who leads the organization that's running the Deflection Center.
To our knowledge, these referrals are going smoothly, and those who have followed up on their referrals have been able to access services. Again, it is going to take time to have a true sense of participants' outcomes. But at this early stage, we are confident in the services we are providing at the center and encouraged by participants' willingness to accept referrals to recovery.
My question prompted that answer there because I asked about outcomes. Which types of referrals are being given and which are being used? Is it mostly detox, housing referrals, which are successful? The county says it is tracking that, but it's too early to share any results, which is somewhat understandable because deflection participants don't have to accept services right away. They have 30 days to, for example, check into a sobering center in order to be considered a deflection success. But the lack of outcome data is still frustrating because everyone wants to know, is this working? And how often does it work or not? The county says it will give its first look at outcomes in mid-February and a quarterly update 6 months after deflection started. For now, we know anecdotally that most referrals are going to detox and some outpatient and peer services organizations.
Currently, what we are seeing about 3 treatment programs that we are doing a lot of the referrals to. 4 Health to be one of them, and then I believe Recovery Works, and then 4D as well.
If we take a step back and look at the total number of people who are choosing this deflection option, 127 people over the course of 75 days, that's less than 2 per day. Although the deflection center itself did not come online for that first month and a half when mobile deflection was happening then. County leaders say the numbers are fairly low because of the strict limitations on who is eligible for deflection, which are people whose only crime is possessing hard drugs without any outstanding warrants.
It's important to consider that the bar for deflection eligibility remains high. Outstanding warrants are a big barrier, and oftentimes people are stopped for additional violations such as trespassing, which makes them ineligible for deflection.
We know that at least 28 people in the first 10 weeks started the deflection process and then opted out after they were referred by law enforcement. Think someone goes to the county's Pathway Center and instead of being arrested and shortly after arriving, they say, "No, I'm good, I'm going to leave now." That makes them ineligible for deflection for the next month if they're found with drugs again. But they're not rearrested on the spot there. Also, that number 28 does not include anyone who might have received service referrals at the Pathway Center and simply didn't follow up within a month. That would be considered a failed deflection instead of an opt-out. Multnomah County says all of this is no surprise.
As expected, some people who are eligible for deflection ultimately opt out. Some start deflection, but are not yet at a place of readiness to engage in services. We also anticipate that some people will be referred to deflection more than once before they are successful.
And lastly, we heard a lot of concern from Southeast Portland neighbors of the Pathway Center before it opened, namely a now dropped lawsuit from a nearby preschool. Today, a Multnomah County security director said the county saw no increase in camping, loitering, or other activities related to the Pathway Center in its first month in that community. So what's going through your mind when it comes to deflection? Our team covered this time and time again during the lead up, and we'd love to hear your thoughts now. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090. This week, an Oregon man was sentenced to 9 months in jail after he pleaded guilty to assaulting law enforcement and other charges related to the breach of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. 24-year-old Jonathan Peter Klein of Pendleton also received 3 years of probation and must pay $3,000 in restitution. Court documents say Klein and his older brother Matthew attended the Stop the Steal rally and then made their way to the Capitol. Jonathan Peter Klein then injured a Metro police officer before entering the Capitol building and recording with his phone. He then left the Capitol, reunited with his brother, and forced open a different door to the building, causing over $10,000 in damage. His brother Matthew was sentenced to 90 days in jail earlier this year. What's interesting about this latest case is that a few weeks ago, Jonathan Peter asked a judge to delay his sentencing until after President-elect Trump takes office next month. Clearly, that did not happen, but it's no secret why he made that request in the first place.
We will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
And according to Lewis and Clark Law School professor Tung Yen, President-elect Trump could do that quite easily shortly after taking office.
You can imagine he might just come in on day one and say, well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm just deciding by executive order pardon for anybody involved in any January 6th crime without going through any of that review process. He could do that, and that would be very easy for him to do.
In case you're wondering, according to federal prosecutors, more than 1,500 individuals have been charged in nearly all 50 states for crimes related to January 6th. That includes nearly 600 people charged with the felony of assaulting or impeding law enforcement. So while the Klein brothers wait and hope that President-elect Trump pardons them next month, there's another big pardon that happened this week, surprising some political pundits. President Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter after previously saying he would not. Ariane Daytil with our Verified team looks into how much protection these presidential pardons really offer.
President Biden's son Hunter, who was convicted of felony gun charges and tax offenses, faced a max prison sentence of up to 25 years. His father, President Joe Biden, repeatedly promised he would not pardon his son. But just weeks before Hunter Biden's scheduled sentencing, the president changed his mind. On December 1st, the president pardoned him for those crimes and any others he may have committed in the last decade. Now people are curious about how broad presidential pardons can be. So let's verify. Can a president pardon someone for a crime they haven't actually been charged with? These are our sources. The U.S. Constitution gives the president broad power to issue pardons in offenses against the United States. In the 1886 case Ex parte Garland, the court described a president's authority to pardon as unlimited, except in cases of impeachment, extending to every offense known to the law and able to be exercised either before legal proceedings are taken or during their pendency or after conviction and judgment. President Biden's full and unconditional pardon for Hunter insulates his son from facing federal charges for any crimes he may have committed from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. The Department of Justice Office of the Pardon Attorney says pardons this broad are rare, but this isn't the first example in American history. A similarly broad pardon was issued by Gerald Ford to Richard Nixon, following Nixon's resignation after the Watergate scandal. Ford's pardon extended to all offenses against the United States that Nixon has committed or may have committed between January 20th, 1969 and August 9th, 1974, the exact span of Nixon's presidency. So we can verify, yes, presidents can pardon people for potential crimes they haven't actually been charged with. But Biden's pardon of his son does not extend to any crimes Hunter could theoretically commit in the future. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Daytil.
Up next on the story, the former director of a Vancouver-based nonprofit meant to help communities of color has been banned for life from managing a charity in the state of Washington. What prosecutors say she did when the story returns. To Vancouver now, where 3 former directors of a nonprofit will have to pay a total of $400,000 in penalties for misusing money meant for communities of color and low-income individuals in Southwest Washington. The Noble Foundation was a Vancouver-based nonprofit established in 2012 by Ophelia Noble. The foundation and its 2 other charities, run by members of Noble's family, received more than $1 million from major philanthropic groups and hundreds of thousands in state grants. But according to a lawsuit from then Attorney General Bob Ferguson, much of that money was misused by leadership. A few examples. Noble had the charities pay her $355,000 in back pay for contract services, with no documentation of any contracts or board approval. That's on top of another $310,000 for unspecified and unapproved executive director services. In 2020, she had her foundation buy her father's house for $200,000. 2 years later, she paid about half the cost to get the title transferred in her name. But the house is worth more than triple that, meaning she gained more than $200,000 in equity. Noble also had the foundation buy her a new car, plus tens of thousands in other purchases not clearly linked to the charities, like gift cards, meals, travel, and personal clothing. Along with the financial penalties, Noble is barred for life from managing a charity in Washington. Her family members, the other charity heads, are barred for 10 years. The Columbian reports the Noble Foundation shuttered operations in May of 2023. Now to a sad update on a story that we shared with you last week here on The Story. John Waller, a local explorer and filmmaker diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago, died over the weekend at the age of 48. We shared his powerful perspective on the value of time after his diagnosis before cancer. Waller summited Mount Hood more than 30 times. And even while his body was working against him, he climbed the highest mountain in the Western Hemisphere down in Argentina last year with a small pump embedded in his abdomen, delivering chemo to his liver. And just a year after that diagnosis, he met Liz, who embraced John for the special person he was, rather than focus on what he called his medical baggage. The couple married in July of this year. Our story certainly resonated with you, as we got several emails and voicemails after it aired. But this one from Sarah stood out. She wrote, "Your story hit me hard and touched my heart. During this season of to-do lists, hosting big dinners, the shopping to do, etc., I decided right here and now to not think about what I should do, but occupy my mind thinking about the people I love and care about and the time spent with them. Thank you for this wake-up call." And so before we head to break tonight, we'll leave you with some of John's profound sentiments that have stuck around in our minds. A reminder to all of us that no matter what you may be going through, time is precious. Savor the small moments that bring you joy and happiness. And may John Waller rest in peace.
My goal and motivation within all of this has been to live the most high quality and abundant life that I can until I can't, and then I'm good. And I'm not battling anything, I'm not fighting anything, I'm not a warrior in the world of cancer. I'm just trying to heal my body. And that healing may happen independently from what cancer decides to do. Because cancer could consume me and I can feel healed at the same time. At the end of the day, in those sort of final moments of life, what really matters is what were the fingerprints that you left behind for the people you love.
The KGW Great Toy Drive is well underway and there are just 2 weeks left to give. If you make a donation online, we will shop for you. Just go to kgw.com/toy and click donate money online. Plus, if you give this week, Oregon Corrections Enterprises will double your donation amount for Double the Toys, up to $5,000, helping bring a little joy to the local families this holiday season. Well, we've now reached the busiest time of the year for Oregon's Christmas tree industry. As the nation's top producer, Oregon plays a vital role in holiday traditions across the country. Today, Pat Doris visited a couple of local farms to see how the season is shaping up.
We've only opened for like 3 years. So
in Clackamas County, near the town of Carver, Jackie Kofed leads the way to her family tree farm. Her customers loved this first weekend of the clear weather.
By the second weekend, it's always rainy and cold, and then everybody's like, it's almost like their Oregon right to come out and
be miserable,
be miserable in the rain. I'm like, that's great, I'll do it with you, it's fine.
I've done that. She and her husband have 20 acres here. For the last 3 years, they've been one of many small Christmas tree farms in Oregon where you can cut your own tree.
The Nordmans and the Nobles are probably the most popular, and they don't smell as great, but they hold all the ornaments really well.
Jackie's not a typical farmer. She grew up in Texas, then moved to New York to work on the Today Show before settling in Clackamas with her Oregon-born husband. They have trees in a variety of heights, and there's an occasional surprise among them. She doesn't know who left this star here. She says business is good on her small farm.
Each time we've had people come back, and it's just sweet because everybody's so happy. So that's my favorite part.
In Oregon, Christmas trees are more than just fun. They're big business. In 2020, 4.5 million trees were harvested here at a value of about $110 million. This chart from the USDA shows an interesting trend in Christmas tree sales in Oregon. Look at 2005 and 6 and 7 and 8. Where roughly 7 million Christmas trees were sold each year. Then the number begins falling, but the price, the value of the crop, goes up. One of the biggest Christmas tree companies in Oregon is Mackenzie Farms. With a total of 3,000 acres and 6 million trees, owner Cubby Steinhardt knows the industry as well as anyone.
This is the best weather we've had for growing and harvest in the 8 years.
We visited as his crew loaded trees into a semi-truck bound for San Francisco. Mackenzie ships hundreds of thousands of trees all across the U.S., which reminded me of the hurricane in North Carolina. That state also grows a huge number of Christmas trees, second only to Oregon. Hurricane Helene walloped some of the fields there. Cubby knows that all too well.
Well, we have farms in North Carolina. I have another farm in North Carolina. And it really hasn't, except it's helped people to see how stressed out the farmers are. From that, we needed that like a hole in the head.
Oregon growers will likely not see an increase in sales because most of the destroyed Christmas trees in the Carolinas were tiny, ripped out of their roots by landslides. In the meantime, this is the busy season for Oregon Christmas tree farmers as the industry hopes to bounce back. It's happening at both big operations like Mackenzie Farms and small ones like Jackie's.
We've been very busy. It's also been really nice weather. It's been this weather.
Yeah, it's great.
It's been beautiful. So it's for us. That's what I'm saying. Next weekend I'll be like.
That is the end of our show tonight. Thank you very much for watching. For those of you watching live on TV tonight, the good stuff is coming up your way next. And for the rest of you watching online, don't forget you can stream the story on your schedule. Download the free KGW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. And have a great Tuesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow at 6:30.